Hey, my name is Jason Ashelman. Today we're at Xperience Church. We're talking everything Allen Heath dLive. And whether you're new to the Allen Heath ecosystem or it's your first time mixing here, just want to give a little more insight to how everything is routed on the console, where you can find everything on the console, as well as some insight into how our system works, how everything's connected together. So hopefully you can have a little more information when you start problem solving, if anything comes up. Talk about power on, power off procedures, all the good things. Also, if you are on the worship team, skip ahead. There's some chapter markers and you'll be able to see how the iPad app works and how you're able to select and mix your own in-ear system as well. So we're going to start by removing the dust cover and then powering the two computers that are underneath the desk here. One's labeled Waves and the other one is labeled Tracks. And both of those need to be turned on. Next, you can reach to the top unit in the rack and press the Fire It Up button. That's going to start the power sequence. We can see the console starting to fire on and everything else is going to start turning on: the amps, wireless ears, the mix track, everything in the back. Once the console starts up, you're going to be hit with this login page, and there's three user options. Admin is a password protected user that you'll log into for your Sunday morning uses or your Xperience Church events. Worship is a user that's created for the worship team to control their own in-ears on the iPads, and young adults is everything youth related, midweek related, if there's small groups or anything like that. That'll be all done under the young adults user. So log into whatever user you have been instructed to by the production lead. So depending on the user that you log into, you're going to be automatically directed to a scene. Just to verify and to dive a little deeper into the scenes, we want to tap on our scenes here on the top right. So we logged into the admin user, and by default that sets us to scene 1, which is Sunday. Now the Sunday scene is basically wherever the console was last used. So wherever the faders, the pans, EQs, compressors, all of the settings, however the last engineer left it. That's going to be what's defaultly recalled. Now, if you're wanting to start a little more fresh, but you're not wanting to go back to nothing, I really recommend selecting the Sunday baseline and selecting Go under Recall. And that's going to recall a baseline scene that hasn't been affected by the last engineer. Basically, we set up a scene that has everything routed, everything patched, everything is done correctly. There's going to be a few corrections on channels, nothing crazy, but your gain stages are going to be close, and you're going to have some low cuts on some stuff. You're going to have just a great canvas to start building your mix on without having to start over from scratch. Once you've finished your sound check and you're ready to move away from that baseline without overriding it, we're going to select the Sunday scene, we're going to select Store, we're going to overwrite the current Sunday scene. That's going to take your sound check, your baseline, and set it on that Sunday scene. Then we're going to need to go to that scene, so you can select Recall, Go, and Yes, and that's going to move you back to that Sunday. So basically, you took the baseline, you got what you needed on stage, you moved it back to the Sunday slot, overrode the last engineer's mix. Now you're mixing on the main Sunday slot, and you're going to give the next engineer a starting point, if that's what they would prefer, or the option to go back to that Sunday baseline and start a little more fresh with new ears. So if you're on the young adults or the midweek events audio team and you log in under the young adults, it's going to defaultly pull up the youth scene, and you're unable to move out of that if we try to go to another scene. It won't allow that. Basically, we're protecting our Sunday morning worship team, we're protecting their in-ears, and we're allowing you guys to set up your own mix however you want to, but just protecting our Sunday worship team. So before we dive too deep into the console itself and go over features and layout, I just want to go over some of the system components so you have a better idea of how everything's set up and laid out throughout the space and how it all kind of works together. Hopefully give you a better idea for problem solving if anything comes up. So starting back in the production rack room, just off the production room, there is a CDM64 mix rack, and that's kind of what's controlling our main Allen Heath system here. Using the two DX outputs on our CDM64, there's two DX168 units. That gives us an extra 32 channels of input and 16 channels of output. So that's kind of how we're achieving all of our channel inputs on the console. Our main CDM64 mix rack is connected to our Surface here. We got the dLive 3500 connected via Giga Ace. There's also a local card right here on the console, and that's a Waves card, allowing us to use Waves not only for processing at front of house, but also to record on another computer and also enabling us to do 94 or 128 channels. We're only using 94, but sending a ton of channels over to broadcast, giving them all these channels straight off the mix rack. We started up 2 computers here at front of house earlier. One was called Waves, one was called Tracks. The Waves computer is running SuperX Soundgrid. That's controlling a Waves Soundgrid server back in the rec room, which is connected to the Waves card here on the console. The Tracks computer here at front of house is kind of a multi-purpose computer for the front of house engineer. It runs Reaper or whatever DAW you want to use to record. If we want to do a multi-track recording, we're sending all those channels over through the Wave server. It has Smart V8, which is what we use to monitor our dB levels and our RTA during a service. dLive Director, if you need to do some typing or some quick patching, you can do it through the computer, and then Wireless Workbench if you're trying to work through some RF stuff. There's quite a bit more details on how all these devices integrate together, especially for broadcasts when you start talking integrating video and audio together. If you want to know more how about that works, just reach out to your production lead and they'll walk you in the right direction. Starting on the left side, bank 1, we're going to start up here in A. And actually, the first 4 layers is an exact mirror of what our actual patch is on our mix rack. And if you want to view that patch, you can select the I/O button up here in the top left. You can see what's actually patched to the mix rack, and you can actually see our channel count on the console, and we can see that that's 1-to-1 here. I set up this whole console in kind of a festival style layout. And if you're familiar with that, you know there's going to be a lot of extra channels. Maybe you don't always have patched on stage at any time, but it allows the sound team and the worship team to add instruments, take things away, and you already have channels assigned to that. And so it's a lot of flexibility for the worship team to change, and it's a lot of flexibility for the sound engineers to not have to patch a ton of new channels every time that there's something different. So for example, we have 10 drum channels, but we're only using 5. But if they did add a full kit with kick out, kick in, snare top, snare bottom, we already have those channels assigned, and they're already assigned to all the groups and everything, so there's no full rework and full patch. So just walking through these layers on bank 1, bank A, we got the drums, we got clicking cues, we got tracks on the next page, we have 2 extra channels of tracks, we got bass guitar, we got electric guitar, we got acoustic guitar. We got 6 stereo channels of keys, so 12 channels here. And then we have sax, and sax may or may not be also the violin as well if there's a violin player. It's kind of an aux position, they don't always have one. And then there's an extra channel, so if they did do sax and violin at the same time, we do have an extra channel set up right there next to the aux. I'm ready to go for that. Layer D is all of our speaking or singing vocal mics coming from the stage. We have WL1, which stands for Worship Leader 1. We have WL1 through 6, so our 6 singers, our 6 vocalists on stage. And then we have 4 dedicated speaking mics channels. HHPK is handheld Pastor Kyle. HHPJ is handheld Pastor Justina. And then there's handheld 3 and handheld 4. So there's 4 dedicated mics for speaking. Moving to the page E, these I would consider more customized layers. They're not 1-to-1. These are kind of your working layers. This is all the necessary drum channels, all the necessary tracks, all the necessary guitars. And this next page is all the necessary vocals. We got some vocal effects, and then we have our speaking mics. So on the right side of the console, we have bank 2, and fader layer A is all the mains and the matrix. There's also a label here to help you out if you need it. We got the mains, we got the subs, front fills, monitors. There's actually a few wedge monitors on stage if you want to send Pastor Kyle or Pastor Justina, give them something to hear during the message, or if you want to put some keys through there for them. If they're talking, they can hear some of those keys coming through. So there is monitors on stage, lobby, production room. So in the video suite, there's a few HS8 monitors in there, and you can send a custom mix to them. That's what they hear. It's just the mains and then the talkback mics on stage. The Embed 1 and Embed 2 channels is broadcast. Embed 1 is a front of house mix sent to broadcast. Embed 2 is our actual broadcast mix sent to our video stream output. Layer B, this is all of our in-ears. And also, if you wondered, there was 2 extra in-ears on layer A. So yes, layer B is all of the practically used packs on a Sunday morning. And if there's extra people shadowing, maybe there's someone trying to learn to sing or learn to play and there's someone shadowing those positions, they may have one of these aux packs, but we can view them, we can monitor them, and help out with in-ears in that way. Layer C is all of our effects. We have all of our sends here and all of our returns here. Now layer D is called utility, and the reason I call it that is because it's everything not band related as an input. So we have 3 MD mics, musical director mics, so those are speaking positions on stage that we won't hear in the house. We have 2 talkback mics, so these are talkbacks at front house that we can communicate with the band on stage. RTA mic, that's what sends to smart. Room mics, CG1, 2, 3, computers, graphics, computers. That's how we receive audio from the videos that play back. We have our Sonos machine, which is our house music, and then 8th, which is just this 8-inch jack right here. You can plug your phone in and play some music. After D, we have layers E and F, and I really want to talk about both bank 1 and 2 at the same time when we talk about layers E and F. These 2 layers on each side is really where you're going to mix on a Sunday morning. This really has everything you need. All the other inputs and outputs are just there for you if you need to access them. But layers E on both bank 1 and 2 is the whole band. It's the whole practical band that you're hearing from stage. All the drums, all the tracks, the bass, the keys, and all the vocals. Layer F on bank 1 and 2 is all of the vocals, the effects, the speaking mics. You have your production elements like your video computer, your house music, and then we have all of our DCAs. I want to go over the DCAs real quick. We have all of our band sections, drums, bass, guitars, keys, tracks, and then we have a vocals group. This includes all of the singing vocal mics. It does not include any of the speaking mics. We have a band DCA, which is every single band related input. We have the effects, which is all the effects return channels. So you can easily kill effects if you have a delay tail that shoots off and you really want to kill that, or someone starts to speak from stage and you have effects up, you can pull down the return through that effects DCA. So having these 3 DCAs, the vocals, the band, and the effects group, having these down essentially mutes the whole band, all the vocals, and all the effects, and anything related to the band coming from the stage. So through a combination of layers E, you can sound check your whole band, you can see every band input here, or you can just do vocals and DCAs. You also have the option to do DCA spills. If you select mix on your DCA, it'll spill out those DCA channels on bank 1. Deselecting mix will take you back to home. Going through the custom soft keys here, if it has a label, it's assigned. If it doesn't have a label, it's not assigned. So we got a talkback mic here. If it's red, it is muted. This mains mix button, if that is blue, if that is lit up, you are mixing the mains. If it is not lit up, you are not mixing the mains, which means you're in someone's in-ears, you're in some send somewhere. So it's just a good way to double check to make sure you're actually mixing the mains. Down here at the bottom we have our vocal reverb. We can easily select it and see what we're sending to it, make changes. Same with delay. And then we have a tap tempo here at the bottom for that delay. You can unselect these sends to return to the mains, or just reach up and press mix mains, and that's gonna unsends on fader you, or get you back to that main mix to spill your main mix back out on your faders. So out of respect for everyone's in-ears and other sources in the building, just make sure that you're mixing the mains if that is your intention. So just every time you hop on the console, or every time you switch to another thing, or you walk back to the console, just make sure you're mixing the mains and not some other mix. I touched on it briefly, but if you go to your IEM page and you select a mix, that will pull up that vocalist, that musician's in-ear mix, and we can make adjustments, we can help them out. We can also select PAFL or solo on that channel. We can plug our headphones into the local headphone jack, and we can monitor and mix their in-ears. Again, with your knee-jerk reaction being to select the mains before you dive back in and mix the house. On the same topic of in-ears, each vocalist and each instrument group has access to their own reverb for just their vocal or just their instrument group. So if you go to your effects page, we can actually see what effects are going to the ears. Reverbs number 1 through 6 is going to all 6 vocalists. 7 and 8 is the instruments group, and then the aux group, which we can send whatever we want to that aux group. If it's a special musician or somebody wants something special sent to that reverb, it is dedicated and it is patched to their in-ears, but it is not patched on the console, so you won't physically see that under these effects. These effects here under our effects page and the effects that they get to the ears are very separate. So if they have a specific reverb or in-ear change in that way, you can access that through the effects page. All the effects that we hear in-house are all Ultra Rack effects. So in effects under Rack Ultra Effects tab. That's a tongue twister right there. So yeah, we have 5 reverbs that we're using here under our sends and returns page, as well as we're just using a standard delay under the effects tab for our 6th effects channel, which is the delay. I just want to take a quick diversion from talking about the console and go over Wave Super Rack Soundgrid real quick. We got our 6 vocals here. We got our 4 handheld preach mics. We got our embed channel. So basically we have a matrix on the console for broadcast like we talked about. So if broadcast is coming from front of house, it's going to go through this mastering chain before it gets sent to get embedded for the video. That's just something to be aware of. And then this last channel is the mains. We can add dynamic EQ, we can add some compression, whatever you want on your mains is going to be processed here. Overview 1, we're only using 16 channels. Rack, if you want to see the rack view of any one of these channels, you can tap on the plugin or select the rack. All of these you do not need to really touch or know anything about, but one thing to verify is that if you are on the youth team, that you have the youth session pulled up here, and if you're on the Sunday team, you have the Sunday session pulled up. If your team session is not loaded, you can select this down arrow, select open session, and you can find it there. We have a very simple vocal chain here. We have waves tune, we have a little bit of EQ if you want to, and de-essing. We have 2 layers of de-essing, depending on what style of de-esser you want. One of the most important pieces though of this waves system is waves tune real time. Over here on the right, we do have user keys for the different keys, but those can't necessarily be renamed, or at least I haven't found a way to do so. And so we did end up setting a Stream Deck up right next to the front house console that has all of the major keys here, as well as a bypass that will disable waves tune on the Soundgrid. Super important for keeping all the vocals tight during the set, but also having a shortcut to keep the vocals clean while worship leaders are speaking, or during sound check when people are just kind of riffing around and not singing anything in particular. We can make sure to not have auto-tune on. So let's go over our buttons and screens and our custom knobs. We have our mutes, we have our selects, which will show us our selection on the left screen. We have our mix, which is like a spill, sends on fader, flip fade, whatever you want to call it. And then we have our solo or our PAFL right here, which will send that channel to our PAFL assigned output, which is our headphones at this point. What's being displayed here in the channel strip and what's being assigned to these knobs can be changed by this function button here and these function buttons here as well. Our name is our channel name, our dB is our actual fader value, our IO shows us what externally is patched to that channel strip, and then channel shows us what channel strip that actually is and what that name is, because the input patch and the channel strip can be different, but in this system it is patched 1-to-1, so just something to be aware of. Over here in the middle of the console we have a few more function buttons. Gain will assign gain to all of these knobs, as well as a visual readout here at the bottom of the channel strip. Pan is the same, it'll change these knobs to a pan value. We can pan those channels. And then there's 4 custom, or I only have 3 custom buttons set up here. Custom number 1 is a low cut. Custom number 2 is the gate threshold, and custom number 3 is the compressor threshold. So easy access to your processing effects as well as your pans and gains, just all right here. So on the left side of the console we have our library. So if we select a channel and we select a value, so we're on the preamp and we hit library, this will show us our saved values or presets from the selected area. So this is preamp presets, so we can select a preset and recall it. You or another engineer could have set a bunch of EQ presets in that library page as well. Press and hold the setup button. You can select any area on screen that allows you to, and you can do custom layouts and custom setups for that area. The listen button allows you to tap and monitor through the PAFL channel any part of your input chain. These knobs under the screen and these knobs on the side are a little self-explanatory. If you have an EQ pulled up here, We can make any changes here with these knobs. They're all color coordinated as well as the ones on the side. Here's some compression and gate, and these are color coordinated knobs to the assigned values. This big knob right here is a touch to assign, so we can tap on a value and we can change that value. Both screens are touchscreen, which makes EQ changes and Q changes very easy. Also, if you've made EQ changes that you're not happy with, you can press and hold the reset button in the bottom left, then tap on the area you want to reset, and that'll reset that to its default values. The copy and paste buttons work in the same way, so if you make an EQ move that you want to copy to another channel strip, you press and hold the copy button, select the value you want to copy, select on the channel strip your destination channel, select the paste button in the bottom left, and then click paste. That'll paste your value from one channel strip to another. The input channel strip is pretty self-explanatory, but I'll walk through it. This bank layer shows us all of our channel strips for our selected bank layer. Our overview shows us an overview of our channel, what's going on processing-wise. Our preamp, we can select and load tube models if we want, phantom power, gain, pad, mix socket if you need to repatch something, it's all right here. Also, all of our wireless mics are connected via network, so we can view RF, peak. We can adjust gain directly from the receiver that's racked in the back room. Filter for our high cut and low cut, make sure these are inserted or not inserted, whatever you want. Our gate settings, our insert A, which is not used, our parametric EQ, our comp, self-explanatory stuff here, and then insert B. This is where stuff is going to waves or coming back from waves if there are channels that are being used by waves. So all of our vocal mics, our mains, and our embed, just like we talked about. We don't have to worry about delay in this context, but there is a tab for it. The right side of the console, our second screen, we have our meters here in the top. This is just all of our input meters. We do have custom user meters, which is just the meters that you'll use on a Sunday morning. We have two groups of those. One is for all the stage inputs on a Sunday, and then user 2 is for all the outputs that we use on a Sunday. Coming down, we have our effects tab, which shows us all of our effects for all of our inserts. Again, these first 8 are just for the in-ears, and then our ultra rack effects are what we're hearing in the house. So if you do want to try new effects, press the effects send, press library, and we have a whole list of presets. Space verbs, the size, plate verbs, all the things are right here. Going down to our I/O page, this should look familiar to most. This is our outputs and our inputs page, as well as a virtual sound check page. We have our mix rack, we have our surface, so we can switch between our physical surface or our mix rack in the back. Just for clarification, our mix rack local is our stage box, our DX1 is our first 16-channel expansion, and DX34 is our second 16-channel expansion. That goes for both inputs and outputs. If you want to modify or view the waves patch, it is under the surface outputs or inputs because the card is plugged into I/O port 4 just here right on the surface. It is named waves, and you can view all those patch assignments here. If you need to make a patch change, you need to select and hold the patch button to transfer it from navigate mode to patch mode, and then you can tap select to make your changes. Going down is the scenes page, which we've already discussed, but this is where you navigate, store, and recall scenes. We're going to skip down to the mix rack settings where we have all of our configurations, our input stereos. So if you have a new stereo input or would like to convert a stereo to a mono, this is where that would happen. All our names and colorings, our network settings, our user settings, our device settings, all of the mix rack settings are in there. Going down to surface is one of the more useful tabs. This is where we can do strip assignments. These are our fader banks 1 and 2. We can select a bank and a layer, and we can just drag and drop channels right onto our faders. You drag those up and out to remove them, and then you can just tap and hold and swap faders as well if you want to rearrange and move things around on the console. Under surfaces, we have utilities and shows, which is just more utilities for the console. If you've run in the past or would like to start using the same scene every time you come back, do not save these into the shows. You can save these under the scenes tab by creating a new scene, storing a new scene here. Leave all of the utility show management up to the production lead. So under the routing tab, we can see where stuff is going. We can assign our input direct out settings. If we need to send more gain to a direct out, we can change our global direct out sources if we want to go post EQ, post gate, all that kind of stuff. Also, you can change the tap point on the in-ears. If you select an in-ear matrix or a mix, you can select the source point, and we have it just after the first return, so we're just getting low cut and preamp. We're not sending EQ or nothing like that. So in a practical use case, there could be a time where you need to not send a channel to the mains. Let's say the click, for instance. We can select our click channel and we can turn that on or off. This will allow you to unsend a channel to the mains, and so regardless of the fader position, it won't pass audio. We can also see our pre and post fader options for our mix sends, as well as control the vocal and instrument effects that are dedicated just for the in-ears. This talkback button is not being used. If you want to talk to the band, you can use this mic right here and unmute the talkback. If you ever get lost in any of these windows, there's a help button right here you can press, and it'll give you practical tips, how to customize things, and how to navigate the console. So after service, let's talk about saving and console shutdown. So if you want to save your scene, go to the Scenes tab over here on the right side, then tap on your Sunday scene, then select Store. This will prompt you if you would like to overwrite the current Sunday scene. We'd say yes. Things to avoid: you do not want to override the youth, do not want to override the Sunday baseline, so we're just going to leave the Sunday baseline alone. From there, we're ready for console shutdown. We can go over to the left side over here, select the home button, then coming back over to the right, you'll see the power down option. Select power down and then hit shutdown desk. When the console's ready to power off, it'll say it's now safe to shut down your dLive. We can reach under the desk and we can press the shut it down button. Alright, let's talk mixing your own in-ears. So if you are a musician or a vocalist on stage, you can mix your own personal mix, your own personal pack through an app, through an iPhone or an iPad. So the app that we're using is called the dLive For You app. And you can ask your production lead. There might be a network, most likely there'll be a network that you need to connect to. So you can ask the production lead for that password information and all that stuff, and they'll get you connected. But there's a bunch of iPads across the stage that the band and the vocalists have access to with this app installed on it. So if the app is not open, we can open that app. This is the options that we're given. These are demo modes and other that we don't need to worry about. This CDM64, this is our mixing board here. That's what we're going to connect to as a band. So we're going to hit connect. There's going to be a few users that you have the option to connect to, and there's a non-password protected user called Worship, and that's the one that you're going to connect to. You can tap on it if it's not already selected and click log in. Most likely, all the iPads on stage will already be logged in and connected at any time, but if you do need to log in, you'll log in under Worship, or if you do it from your phone, you'll log in under Worship. So this is our main layout here. We have groups of channels, and then here on the right side, we can see some information about what actual in-ear pack we're mixing. So right up here, it says aux3. That's the pack itself. The pack will say aux3 on it. If we tap mix select up here in the very top right, we can see a complete list of all the belt packs. So for instance, bass, and then we can go back, and now we're mixing our bass. So the bass player, we'll go back in WL2. So now we're mixing WL2's in-ears. So I'm going to select aux3 again, and I'm going to make changes in there. So we've selected aux3, we go back, we verify that we're actually affecting aux3. This right here is our master volume for our whole pack, every single channel coming in. So we can turn that up and down. I highly, highly recommend leaving that at 0, and if it's too quiet or too loud, use your actual belt pack volume to adjust. Also, there's a mute here, so if it is muted, you can just verify that you're unmuted. Let's talk about these channel groups here. To enter a channel group, we need to double tap on it. So we can just double tap anywhere on that group, and now we can view this whole band group. This is every single instrument that you're hearing from stage. All the drum channels, all the bass, guitar, acoustic, keys, saxophone, and violin will come down that channel. And then there's some reverbs here as well at the very end. If you want reverb on your instruments, you can turn that up. If you want some auxiliary verb, so that's for the saxophone player, is the auxiliary verb, because they're all the auxiliary instrument players. So you have your main band and then your auxiliary players, reverbs. This is pretty self-explanatory. You have volumes up and down, and then you have pans left and right. So in your left ear would be panning to the left, and then right ear to the right. You can swipe from left to right to kind of change what you're viewing along there. We're gonna head back, and we're gonna look into another group. So this is every instrument playing from stage. These are all the tracks, artificial instruments coming from stage. So we're gonna double tap to that group to see what's in here. We got click, we got our cues, and then we got our tracks. So these are all different channels of tracks. Heading back, we can go to the miscellaneous group here. Double tapping on it, this is all of our non-band related inputs. So we have our musical director, our MD mics, we have our preaching mics. So there's 4 mics for preaching. We have our handheld for Pastor Kyle, we have our handheld for Pastor Justina, we have handheld 3 and handheld 4. Handheld 3 and handheld 4 will be used for people giving announcements or any type of verbiage coming from the stage that is not Kyle or Justina. Talkback 1 is the front of house audio board. So we have a mic here that we can talk to the band. Same with Talkback 2, there's going to be 2 mics back here. The room mics, we have some mics throughout the room that will allow you guys to kind of hear the ambience of what's going on in here. You can hear people singing, you can just kind of hear the space. So that's what the room mics are for. CG1 is any video content that's being played from a production standpoint. So a mid-service video, countdown videos, any, like if there's a message, video message, or at the movies, or any type of visual content that's coming out of the system, the audio will come through the CG1 channel. So if you do want to tap into that, it's there. The Sonos is all the house music. I don't believe that you guys will want to hear the house music in your ears, but there is that option. These MD mics, number 1 and number 2, are meant to float around the stage and allow talkback and musical direction from multiple people. MD number 3 is the main musical director, and that can be switched between vocal 1 and MD3. So whoever is on the vocal 1 position can switch between being WL1 and being MD number 3. We're going to double tap on the Me group. Now I couldn't rename it, but the Me group is all of the vocals. So we have all 6 vocals, volumes and pans here, as well as 6 reverbs, 1 for each vocal. And hopefully the labeling makes sense, but this is reverb for WL1 and so on. If you're singing in WL3 and you feel like you just need a little bit something to add a little space to your voice, we can scroll over here to WL3 and just lift this until it feels comfortable. So heading back just to overview, we have all of our instruments, the actual instruments being played on stage. We have all of our artificial instruments and our tracks coming from stage, including our click and cues. We have our musical director mics, we have our speaking mics, we have any type of production elements coming in. We have our room mics, our talkback mics, all that stuff is just in this miscellaneous channel. And then we have our vocal group. You guys can double tap in, make any changes you want. So these scroll wheels are actually overall volume for that whole group. So you can turn up or down all of these channels at once. Let me demonstrate. So let's say we have our tracks mix set. We really like where it's at. And then in context, once you start singing, you feel like the tracks are just too loud. You can walk over here and you can turn the tracks down. Just tap and drag on that bus. And if we go back in, we can see that they all got turned down. And I can keep going, and they just got even quieter. Or on the inverse, we can turn it up, double tap in, and we can see that they got a lot louder. So it's a quick and easy way to just control all of the instruments all at once, or all the tracks all at once, or all the MDs and everything. It's just a super easy way to access those things without having to tap in and turn each one of them down like that. So as a vocalist and a musician, you're playing, you're singing, your instrument is the most important thing in your ears, right? You need to hear what's going on. But if you don't hear other people, it's really hard to kind of be cohesive as a band. If the aux player, the saxophone player, the violinist don't know what the piano's playing, they might be playing very similar things over top of it, and these elements can start to fight. Or the guitar player and the keys player can kind of fight together with their parts kind of clashing. So it's really important to hear everybody, because if you don't have a cohesive in-ear mix, it's really hard to stick together as a band and really gel together and play as one band instead of just separate musicians playing the same song, if that makes sense. So I'm going to kind of use vocals as an example for this, but there's kind of bass lines or things that we really want to recommend that you guys at least start with. So as a musician, vocalist, we want to set our instrument, our vocal, at 0 dB on these meters, just kind of right there along that line that says 0. That's going to be where we start, and then we turn everyone else in our category down, and that's where we start, okay? And then you can turn up or turn down your pack until you feel comfortable with your instrument or your voice, and make yourself as loud or as quiet as you want to be. And once you feel good about where you're at, then you can start to introduce the other vocalists in, see who you want more or less of to complement harmony parts and all that stuff for other instruments. So start with yourself, your instrument, at 0, and then adjust your pack until you are as comfortable and as loud as you want to be in your in-ears, and then start to turn everyone else up to kind of start to fill in that full band feeling. Just a quick example, but as a vocalist, I think it's really easy to have, you have all your vocals where you like them, but it's really hard to hear yourself, and so you end up turning yours up. And let's say you still get lost and you just can't hear yourself, like everything's just too loud. What I recommend doing at that point is going back, and then you can use these groups to turn everything else down, leaving your vocal in the same place. So you can just turn the band and turn the tracks down a little bit and give it a try. And what I recommend even beyond that is to start out, you have yourself at unity, you have everyone else quite a bit lower, so you're rising above, you can hear yourself, you adjust yourself on the pack to a good comfortable volume. Then you can go back, pull everything else down, and just start there, and then turn things up until they feel comfortable. That's enough band right there, or that's enough tracks, and maybe I need quite a bit of MD, right? And so you can use these groups to quickly build a mix without going channel by channel, turning things up, and then I don't even know what this is and whatnot. Like, you can spend a lot of time just poking through here. But if you have a decent mix, but once the band really kicks in, you just lose your vocal, just go back to these groups and then pull the band down. And an inverse of that is if you're in the band, pull the vocals down and kind of rebuild it, or pull the tracks down and kind of rebuild it from there. You might wonder why I recommend leaving your vocal or your instrument at 0, and that's a good starting place. And that might not make sense, but the reason that's so important is because if you push this above 0, you risk the chance of distorting your microphone or clipping your microphone. The signal gets too loud and it just distorts. It'll sound all buzzy and crackly in your ears, and that's never ideal. So leaving yourself and other sources, leaving them at unity is definitely the place to be. Also, when you turn on your pack, starting at about 50% volume is a really good starting place. It used to be all the way up and then you'd mix from there, but it was really noisy and cracky and popping, and you had all these noises. So we made the packs a little more sensitive, so they're going to be a bit louder. So starting at 50% is really good. And if you need more volume, instead of turning it up here, I would just turn your pack up. Because again, if you go above 0, you're kind of risking the chance of making it all distorted and crunchy. The front of house audio team here has access to your mix. So if you hear something change suddenly in your ears that you didn't anticipate, or something just doesn't feel right all of a sudden, definitely mention it to your engineer. Be like, hey, something just changed in my ears, I don't know what happened, and they can look into it, or maybe they accidentally made an adjustment, which I definitely hope is not the case, but it's definitely something to mention if that happens. So because front of house audio has access to your in-ears, it makes it so easy to jump in, to solo things, to listen to your in-ears and make adjustments for you on your behalf. So if you're struggling to hear yourself or your instrument, or just stuff feels too cluttered, or there's not enough clarity, or anything like that, if you have any issues, just mention it to the front of house team. They can easily make those changes and try to help out as much as they can.